I'm going to be talking on the marriage bill now, but I'm also a passionate pro-lifer and defender of the unborn, and I just want to thank you in Durban for taking such a stand to defend the sanctity of life. You've been the #1 city in this country, and I really hope that you will be also the #1 city on the marriage bill as well, which is attacking the sanctity of marriage. And I'm going to explain some of the problems with it. We had some flyers that have been distributed. If you haven't got one yet, maybe just put up your hand and maybe somebody will pass it towards you. But essentially, in 2003, the government proposed, or at least the Law Reform Commission proposed the legalization of same-sex marriage. And a compromise was made after the Constitutional Court ruled to say that they must legalize same-sex marriage, which didn't give the radical LGBT people everything they wanted. The Christians weren't happy with it either, but it was a compromise. What they're proposing now is to break that compromise and give these radical LGBT people everything that they wanted way back then. And I believe we need to stand up against this. This is the most extreme law that's actually been proposed anywhere in the world, and I've told them this, even countries that have, for example, polygamy legal do not have something like what is being proposed at the moment. Now, firstly, it would allow any man to take a second wife, even if he married on the understanding that that was going to be a monogamous marriage. Okay? It would also treat same-sex marriage in exactly the same category as normal holy marriage between a man and a woman. Now, at the moment, there are separate bills, or sorry, separate acts. There is one law for same-sex so-called marriages, which I regard as fake and fraudulent marriages. There is a law for monogamous marriage between a man and a woman, and there is customary marriage, which can, in certain cultures, in, for example, African traditional culture, only if you are part of that culture can you take that as an option, but then you go into that up front, deciding that you're going to go for that customary law. And that's similar to what is also in, for example, Nigeria. They are proposing to allow anybody to have a second wife or a third wife and to treat same-sex marriage as real marriage. And this has an impact on the family, it has an impact on religious freedom, because we know what has happened since they legalized same-sex marriage, as we predicted back in 2006. Christians cannot have wedding venues anymore because they get sued by homosexuals who say we want to marry there, and they can't refuse. Okay? And they are likely to carry on with more of these types of attacks. Secondly, they put in 2006 a conscientious objection clause into this law to say that state marriage officers wouldn't be forced to do that. In 2020, they took that out again with a separate bill, and we have to protest against this. Now, this law has, as a sort of another compromise after people push back one line, which says that pastor's conscientious objection should be protected, but they can take that out just a few years later, just like they took out the protection for state marriage officers. So we don't believe that. We've also seen multiple attacks on pastors such as the MKK Moraleta Park. They forced to pay damages to somebody who was employed by the church, came out as a homosexual. But this is also going to be an educational thing for children, to make them think that, you know, marriage is a joke, that you can just make it whatever you want it to be. Now, the consequence of all of this is that children growing up with this confused, comprehensive sex education, with this idea that marriage can be between a man and another man, or a man and a woman and another woman, they grow up thinking then, well, why bother to get married if it actually means nothing? And that is exactly what's happened as we predicted. Okay? In 2006 we predicted this would happen, and it did happen. And that is that in the first 10 years, the number of people getting married in this country, the marriage rate, is just about halved. Okay? Now the birth rate hasn't halved. Okay? That means more children born outside of marriage, don't have a stable father in the home. That is a disaster. That's a disaster for you as pastors. You have to try and sort out the mess and help those people. We don't want this. Now, it's suicidally stupid for the government to do that because they don't have a social security net to fix this problem. And we need to speak up against this. Now, Phil talked about how the government actually wants us to speak up, some people in the government, and I actually had this in 2021. They were proposing an even more radical bill. The original draft of this allowed women to marry multiple husbands. And the government official stood up and said, when he was proposing this, he said, well, I'm actually a Christian, but the Constitution says we must do this. And I stood up and I said, no, the Constitution doesn't say we must do this. That's a myth. And after the meeting, he came up to me and he said, look, thank you for explaining it. Okay, so we have to push back and talk to these people. Now, on Wednesday, the 26th, the Parliamentary Committee of Home Affairs is coming to Durban. They're going to be in the Durban Community Hall, which is near the harbour. It's on the intersection, near the intersection of two major roads. Now, what I've done to make it easy for you is I've put a QR code on the back here. You just scan that QR code, it will take you there by Google Maps. Okay? That is the bottom QR code. Then there are also a number of other QR codes. One is to a video which explains in detail what is wrong with this bill and answering the rubbish arguments in favor of it. And then there's a QR code with WhatsApp updates if you want to get it that way. You can also watch a TV debate that I had with a political leader from Parliament. And there's the Facebook page if you prefer that to WhatsApp as a way to get your information, or you can go and see, if you're joining later, you can go and see the old information. They're also consulting in Jersey on Monday, in Ulundi on Tuesday, but I'm assuming you are going to the one on Wednesday. Now, I'd ask you please to go along to that, even if you're busy. Ask the person, please, to have mercy on you if you can meet them the following week, or find somebody else in your congregation, please, to go on your behalf. Give them this information. I have sent this to Pastor Chetty and Pastor Mutsahi, and so he can distribute it electronically to you, or you can get it by these, if you want an electronic copy to forward on to anybody else, or you can get it on the Facebook page. I will be here after the meeting to answer anybody's questions about this bill. But just to briefly answer the stupid arguments that they're putting forward for this, they're saying, well, the Constitutional Court said they need a law to accommodate Muslim polygamous divorces. Okay? But this bill is going far beyond it. Okay? So if they want to do that, then they must just do what they were asked to do. This is like, if the Constitutional Court says you must pay R1, now they say you must pay R1,000,000. We don't agree to that. That's not helpful. They claim the Constitution requires this. The Constitution doesn't require this. They're reading in like TV reading. This is like astrology. You're imagining things in the Constitution that are not there. Okay? They're claiming that this is required for the international law against discrimination against women, which South Africa has signed. That's rubbish. That has been signed by hundreds of other countries, and these hundreds of other countries are not doing what this group are proposing. So what they're doing is they're doing a card trick. Okay? I don't know if you see somebody shuffles the cards quickly and you can't see what's happening in between, promising one thing and then trying to slip in something else. This is just a legal card trick. Then they say this is required by African culture. African culture is already accommodated in the existing law with the Customary Marriages Act. They say this is democracy. South Africans don't support this. It's nonsense. It's a tiny minority that's supporting this, maybe 1% of the population. They say they're tidying up fragmented wars. It's nonsense, it's not true. They are going far beyond tidying up problems in the laws, and they're creating a whole lot of new problems. They say they're privileging Christianity, and I say that is false. Monogamous marriage is the best form of marriage for everybody, and I'm interested, I gave you the example of India, which has only 2% Christians, but they agreed with us that monogamous marriage was the only form that they were going to allow them for Hindus a few years ago, and they changed the law in the other direction. Why are we going to make polygamy for everybody? So please go along Wednesday, or find somebody else from your church to go along on Wednesday to the Durban Community Hall. Thanks, Dave.